what's happening in Austin, Texas? For the last, I don't know, probably 3 years, Austin has consistently been ranked as one of the best, or the best place to live. This past year, U.S. News and World Report has Austin coming in at number 40. So let's talk about why Austin is no longer the best place to live in the United States. What do you think about this, Karlie? What are some of the things that could be driving this?
I have many things that come to mind, especially since one of those newcomers that has moved here pretty recently. Been here a little bit over a year, and so far, the biggest things that I feel like could turn people our way are maybe the rising cost of rent, also the price of some homes kind of scare a lot of people. I've heard out-of-staters kind of talk about, I say out-of-staters because that's, there's right. Austin's made up of a little bit of everybody. They complain about like property taxes. So there's a few different misconceptions that float around about like real estate specifically. But they also think sometimes if they're like kind of aging out of a certain group and they're not necessarily a part of the party crowd or want to go out a lot, it might not necessarily be the best place. Austin's a very lively city, and I feel like its nightlife is definitely something that can either really attract people or push them away with like the bachelorette parties and little things like Rainy, like kind of closing down now because of all the apartment buildings going up. It kind of seems like Austin's like appeal and little like unique charmingness is kind of fading away.
It's certainly changing. You brought up a number of points. I mean, number one is the cost of living. In a very short period of time, that has gone up. In fact, the numbers that they quote in this U.S. News and World Report, the national average, although it's elevated because of all the boom, right at 383, and we're sitting at 560. That's the median price for a house. Rents are somewhat more competitive. I mean, they say that the average rent's around $1,400. I think one of the advantages of Austin is there are distinct areas. And what I mean by that is, when you mentioned the aging out of the party crowd, I've never heard it put that way, but someone who doesn't want to be part of that lifestyle or kind of not as much, it really would depend on the area of town they're living in. Now, certainly downtown, you'd have more visibility to that, but as you begin to move into other areas of the metro, you may not even be aware that they've got 50,000 people coming downtown for an event.
Oh, absolutely.
So I think that's one of the things that's definitely decreased the appeal is the cost of living.
First thing that comes to mind to me, which kind of happened to me and some other people I've heard, is the food culture.
Food, okay.
Yeah, so Austin is fairly diverse now, and it's like slowly getting better and better with a lot more options, like from all around the world, right? Mm-hmm. But whenever I first moved here, I kind of had the idea, at least through Instagram and word of mouth, that, Austin was like the place to eat. But whenever I go to all these places that have these beautiful interiors, they look really fabulous. It's more about the experience and the food, I'd say, which is a kind of a different focus. Okay. I lived in the Bay Area for a while, so it's like more about food, background, and what it looked like really didn't matter. They didn't care. And something about that appeal of authenticity, you can find it in little pockets here in Austin. I'm not saying it's not there.
Right.
I found some really great places, but I wish there was a little bit more of that.
It's almost like anywhere. I mean, whether it be Austin, Dallas, even San Antonio, is that you've got this mix of, you got this Texas tradition. And that piece of it, I think, forever has been the complete opposite of the cosmopolitan feel, the city versus country, if you will. And I don't think you're ever going to eliminate that from any city in Texas. It doesn't take you very long and you're driving out in fields with cows and everything else. You don't get that same experience if you're in Manhattan. The history of Texas with the ranching and the cowboys and all that is so ingrained in this area. When that mix happens, I think it kind of works. But I think if you're expecting one and not realizing the other is there, that may, for instance, with respect to food, how many good barbecue joints are there in the Bay Area or Tex-Mex?
Probably zero.
Well, that's my point. If the expectation is authentic Texan, then certainly you're going to have more options in anywhere, in Texas, including Austin. But because of that lack of that, I don't know, that cosmopolitan feel. I don't know why we've hit on that word, but I think it's kind of an interesting concept.
I think New York when I think.
Yeah. Okay, so cost of living, without a doubt, to paraphrase what I'm hearing you say, is maybe the expectation that Austin being the cool city in Texas is not quite as cool as other larger metros. What about this for someone who has just been here probably for your first summer? What do you think about the heat when you hit the summer months?
Ooh, that is another, what an might not even think about that. I've been out in it all day.
Right,
It
right,
should
right.
come to mind. I grew up in Oklahoma, so I'm a little
So you-
bit
okay,
used to
yeah,
the
right,
heat,
right, right.
But I got really spoiled living in an area where it never really gets over 90 degrees.
Yeah,
Most of the days are
yeah,
sunny and
yeah,
perfect.
Yeah.
That is one drawback about Texas is the summers are intense and the winters we don't get the pretty white Christmas. Sometimes it's like an icy
Right, right.
trees are falling over kind of Christmas. So I feel like that's kind of to be expected. It's extreme weather. But some people that like intrigues, they love it. Some people it kind of bothers. But I think I can kind of live with the heat just because I'm more in tune with that type of weather. So I kind of get over it. And the winters are really short here. So
That's
the type
true.
of person that's like, I hate cold weather. I don't even want to think about it. Austin's pretty solid.
Yes.
You're not really
yes.
ever going to get too cold.
Yes.
I don't think, does it ever really get below 30 here?
I think the key thing is the length of time it stays cold. I mean, you referenced the ice storm we had this past year.
Yeah.
It literally did. It shut down the city for what, 2 days?
Oh, absolutely.
But then after that, the ice all melted. It was pretty much back to normal. Of course, with the exception of trimming up the trees.
Oh my gosh, the trees are everywhere.
Yeah.
Just know that if you move to Austin, get ready for the oak tree.
You know, another one I thought about, and this is actually on the opposite end of it, is another report that just recently came out. Austin being ranked the #1 city for recent college graduates, the Gen Z that the marketers like to call it.
I think I saw something about that online today.
Which is also part of the appeal of Austin, because I think for the longest time, the availability of good jobs has drawn a lot of people here. The idea that Austin is ranked higher than places like New York City, Chicago, even Atlanta, or San Jose.
Yeah, San Jose made the list, but Austin was well above it.
Exactly. So again, that may be something to consider when we start talking about the evolution of Austin, if they stick around.
Right.
If somebody comes here, they move somewhere else. But with that influx of younger recent college graduates who are just starting their career, that may be a sign of changes on the horizon.
Oh, absolutely. I feel like it's comfortable enough here and you can enjoy your life and have a fun enough time that's affordable. At least experiencing in the Bay Area, rent's around the same kind of as Austin now. It's very
Really?
close.
Okay.
I feel like most income is about the same because there's such an influx of like tech jobs, and between that and Austin kind of stepping up like minimum wages and stuff like that, it's more, you can make a lot better money here, yes, to kind of supplement the higher rents. But there's a lot of things you can get into that are free. You can go to free concerts, you can go to free parades or free music festivals. There's so many different things here to do that don't cost a dime.
That's
And
true.
They don't have to involve drinking. They're not only artistic, they can be about music, athletic stuff. Like you have so many options here. A lot of people like utilize Facebook groups here to like find their like little crowd and then get introduced to everybody. It's a really good way if you like to hike or, you know, whatever you want to do.
That's a
you can do
valid
it
point.
here.
That's a valid point. I mean, because there are clubs for just about anything, from the outdoor activities to the, I mean, I'm thinking about biking. Is they have, that's one thing that they have added very recently, is a lot of those bike lanes. But I've also seen on weekends particularly, there's large groups that do the full.
You'll see them at a Starbucks. or
Exactly.
something,
Yeah.
like, getting
Yeah.
their coffee out.
Exactly. Yeah. It's not a beach per se, but you do have the water activities in Lake Travis.
Oh, absolutely. You have so many different lakes and like springs nearby. I think that's kind of what gives it more of that college town appeal, like you mentioned earlier. It's kind of like an adult playground, if you will, right?
In some respects,
There's so
yeah.
much different sports and things to do, activities that are affordable and accessible to people who are young and just graduating.
Well, thank you again. I hope this has been helpful. Would you like to say anything else before we wrap this up?
Oh no, thank you for your time. I love sharing this info to kind of get people ahead a little bit. I know last time whenever I moved here, I was like, okay, how do I get into all these different things? I had lots of good friends that helped me out. So I love to help people essentially connect the dots so they don't have to learn the hard way or learn the long way.